Hey, and welcome to this episode of the Journey Podcast. Unfortunately, due to a catastrophic failure of our recording equipment last week, we lost the episode that we recorded and prepared for you all. It's unfortunate, but I guess it's part of the game as we are learning and growing as a young little podcast and trying our best to advance. It's a shame that what we had prepared was lost. It was a great conversation, as always. And we would have hoped, loved for you to hear what was discussed and what we threw together for you. But unfortunately, it is lost. So I figured instead of posting nothing and taking a break, this is our week to give you something new. So for all that do listen, we do appreciate it. And thank you for hanging out. I will speak for just a few moments about some of the things that we talked about on the episode that should have aired or been uploaded today. And then we'll get out of the way and we'll see you again in another 2 weeks with hopefully a brand new episode with the whole gang on the podcast. The main point of the conversation that we talked about was the events that took place on May 24th, of course, in Uvalde, Texas, where an 18-year-old gunman entered into an elementary school and shot 19 students and 2 teachers and wounded 17 other people. The tragic events of that day were yet just another chapter in the saga of gun violence and mass shootings in this country, and this country has seen in the past few years. It was especially terrible because of the very recent other incidents of gun violence, mass shootings that took place around the same time as this May 24th incident at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas. We thought it was important to shed a light and talk and discuss about the incident, as tragic as it was, with 19 little babies being shot and killed while attending school. It is important to acknowledge, and we felt it was important to acknowledge and discuss this horrific crime that has taken place. So we did just that, and we all had a chance to share our thoughts, and some good points were brought up by everyone. But I wanted to. One of the main points was, we always say enough is enough. We always talk about when is it going to end, when are gun laws going to change, when is it going to become harder for people like this to get guns. And my point is I don't think that it will. This country is so rooted and deep in, in bearing arms, the right to bear arms, and wanting to have a gun. We will never get away from the issue of the guns in the hands of people who want them to do evil, whether that's shooting up a school, a grocery store, a concert venue, people on their own street, gang violence. It doesn't matter what it is. People will always have guns. You can create the strictest gun laws. You can, restrict it and make it harder for people to access guns. But there will always be someone down the street who has a gun, who wants it for nothing good, not for just protecting themselves, but for using it for pure evil. How can you take away all the weapons that are out there now, just in this country alone? How can you say that, we're going to make it more difficult for people to get weapons, but you are not going to take the weapons out of the hands of the people who want them for nothing more but to kill innocent lives? And I think that is a harsh reality that we are facing in this country, that we are not going to merely solve the gun crisis or pass stricter gun laws, and that's going to fix the problem. It will not. For those that are preaching and screaming for stricter gun laws, I think that is almost counterintuitive to fixing the problem. I hear a quote all the time: the only thing that can stop bad guys with guns is the good guys with guns. And I think the start of the issue is an armed security, whether that be police, an actual security guard who is trained with an armed weapon, who's armed with a weapon, ex-military, police, like I said, active or retired detectives. The good guys with guns need to be in every single school across this country. It's worth it to protect our young children as they go to learn, as they go to play, as they go to get an education. It is worth it to protect them. We place guns in our banks. We place guns on armored vehicles. We place guns protecting museums and paintings. Why can't we have them to protect our children? So I think, before I get too deep in, what's the answer thing, really there is no answer. There is no right or wrong answer, all that can be done can help, so don't get me wrong when I say, if I say, stricter gun laws isn't going to make a difference. Sure, it could prevent someone who doesn't have a gun getting a gun or a weapon, and that particular person being the wrong candidate for someone who should be carrying. So sure, it could help, but who has the right answer? What is it? Like I said, the issue is so complex now. And it's gotten to the point where it is now. Where is the answer? What is it? That's a hard question, I think. It's hard to define because you could bring something up, but someone's always going to have a counter for it. And sure, it might be a valid point or whatever, but that I think that's the conversation that needs to be happening. What else other than stricter gun laws, quote unquote? Because the politicians who are preaching this, nonpartisan XYZ nonsense, the people who are preaching this would have already done something if they really wanted to. Gun laws would have already been what people or think they should be or what they should be. Stricter access and all this stuff that they're talking about, it would have already been done by this point. Look at Sandy Hook. If it wasn't done after Sandy Hook, there's no hope. There is no hope that something will drastically, miraculously change 37 mass shootings later, or whatever the number is. I'm sure it's probably in the hundreds. 37. I'm sure it's probably in the hundreds. What is going to now all of a sudden make that change? And my thing is that it won't. It won't because they would have already done something. It's all about getting the voters, getting the votes, preaching my side so I can get into office wherever I want to be, whatever representative they are, whatever they're running for. It's all about getting in the seat, and then now what? Then what gets done? So part of my point that I brought up was just that, what if anything is the answer? And it certainly isn't just one thing that's going to be able to get this done. I think, like I said, protecting our children and putting an armed officer in uniform in every single school across this country, it can be done. I know it can, and it should be. That should be step number one. Recently we visited with the kids to a local amusement park in the South Jersey area, and it was mind-boggling to me how many people. Everybody's got a baby bag. Everybody's walking in with a backpack, and there is absolutely zero security. None at all. And in the climate, in the world that we live in today, there should be something. In a public place like that where you have mass gatherings, take a page out of the stadiums. We live close to Philadelphia, so you have a lot, soccer, football, baseball, and then Wells Fargo Center, where they have 20,000 seat arenas. Everyone is going through a metal detector. Everyone's emptying their pockets. Bags are searched. You're not allowed to bring a bag a certain size. If we can make strict rules about entering into a concert venue or a sports facility and you're being searched like that, why is that not happening at every public place now? Everybody, and it's a private business, sure. It's not like, run by the government or whatever. But there has, how am I just able to walk in and I'm not searched at all? With all these bags coming in here, it's just mind-boggling to me, and it's sad that this thought comes through your mind and that you have to think like this. But I'm on a little mini Ferris wheel thing up in the air with my kids, and you know how it stops at the top. They let some people off, and then it goes around and lets some more people off, let some more people on, and then it starts going around and around and around. Then it comes back to, comes back around to it's your turn to get off, and you get off. Whatever. What if I'm at the top of that thing and God forbid someone starts going off with a weapon? Somebody starts shooting in the park. I'm at the top. It's target practice at that point. It's so scary that you have to think about things like that. But unfortunately, it's a harsh reality that you don't know what could happen. So I don't know. It's just it's crazy to me that what's it going to take for people to wake up? The news covers it, pounds it hard into the homes and the cell phones and the tablets and the smart devices and the TVs of every American across this country, real hard, and something else will come up and it'll go away and people will forget. And it's just a shame that, that's what's going to happen. It's what happens every time after every shooting. Nothing changes. That Las Vegas shooting a few years back, like every casino should be like scanning bags like it's the TSA at the airport or every hotel that's down there. You know what I mean? To have somebody that cold and calculated, there's no excuse, There's no excuse if you were running his bags through a metal detector, somebody would have saw something, right? And maybe this tragedy could have been avoided. Not saying that they should have been doing that before, but definitely after that incident, something like that, some change in security needs to happen, The same thing with this school incident. There needs to be somebody on campus. There needs to be somebody there already on scene, ready to go. I think that might be a good step one. Who knows what the full answer is and how do you control and combat this issue? Who knows? But maybe that is a good start. I don't want to speak for my co-hosts, Bree and Tanya. I don't fully remember exactly what Tanya was saying, but I do know Bree was voicing her concern about the time it took, and specifically this Uvalde Robb Elementary shooting incident. The time it took once the story developed and more information was coming out, it was found that it took officers almost 40 minutes to an hour, I believe, to make entry into the school. And the shooter had barricaded himself inside one of the classrooms, and it took the police a very long time to make entry. And it wasn't actually even the police department. It was an off-duty Border Patrol agent and some of his partners that made entry into the school, and it winded up killing the shooter, not without being wounded himself. And it turns out apparently that this off-duty Border Patrol agent was a parent of one of the students that were inside, I believe. So she, part of her point driving home was how the parents must feel standing outside of the school where there's an active shooting scene happening, where your children are trapped inside, not knowing if they are harmed or not, and the police are standing there doing nothing. How terrible they must feel. How terrible that feeling is, I'm sure. I couldn't imagine what it's like. Bree had made the comment that she would run into the school unarmed, unprotected, and go for her babies if that was her in that situation. And while I understand and certainly could attest to at least some of those feelings, I don't know how helpful that would be in a situation like that. Although, like I said, very scary and terrible feeling. It's hard to imagine what those parents must have felt knowing that there was a shooter inside of your kid's school. You've made it on scene, and the police are still standing outside, and then you find out the shooter is still alive inside of the building. Unbelievable. I thought we got away from the whole let's stand outside and wait for backup thing and more towards the, as soon as you get there, you're charging inside. But clearly that wasn't the case at all. So it's said all the time, and I hate saying it, but what else can you do but just to say our thoughts and prayers are truly with all of those who are affected by this senseless, tragic incident. And while it's fresh, in everyone's minds, the shooting in Southern California in the church and the shooting at the grocery store in Buffalo. How horrific. All of these incidents are. And I think that's an important note to take, is that we also have to, start praying and be serious. Pray. Corporate prayer is important, and it sure goes a long way. You see it all the time, and that's something that I think that is part of the answer. What I was talking about, this multi-tiered, multi-dimensional answer, if you will, of how do you combat this problem that we are facing in this country. Among the other things that I've said, prayer, coming together, just as like humanity, not even just Christianity, just people need to start praying. When the incident first happened, Bree asked, why does God let this happen? Why do things like this happen? And I've heard the question asked so many times, and I've heard people with many different answers. I don't have an answer for it. It truly is unspeakable. So we wanted to at least acknowledge the incident and reflect on the incident, reflect on those who lost their lives and their families, and knowing how incredibly difficult it must be to be going through just a terrible time like that. It's truly unimaginable. And, I can say that, we are definitely blessed to still be here and still have our children safe. You don't want to think about, your children going to daycare and is this the last time I might see them? We can't lose that. We can't lose that intensity. People always say, I hugged my child a little tighter last night. Keep that going all the time, because you never know. you never know when it might be your last time seeing anyone. A car crash, you know, a violent incident like this. Who knows? Who knows? So, that's pretty much all I have. This is going to be a short one today. Just wanted to make sure that we did touch and reflect on the incident. This is our closest podcast to from when the incident happened, because we are posting every 2 weeks. So hopefully, things will go better next week. Well, maybe this week when we record, so that in 2 weeks we can bring you another new episode with the whole gang here. So if you have any comments or questions on what was talked about today, any of the incidents that have happened, please leave them on our Facebook. We would really appreciate it. It's facebook.com/CCU Journey Podcast. You can visit the website, Buzzsprout, CCU Journey, CCU Journey Podcast.buzzsprout.com. That's the podcast streaming website. You can listen there and find out more information there. Like I said, our Facebook, hopefully we can see your comments and include them in the next new episode of the podcast. It's rough having to deal with all the craziness in this world. Before I had kids, it's just like it's sad, and there it is. But now that I have children, 3 children at that, it's rough having to think about their safety while you're not around. I think that's something that hits home the hardest too is, your child gets hurt or is sad or upset. You're usually there to comfort them, so it's no big deal. But thinking about them in a terrible situation, especially within the last few moments of their life, and you're not there for them, and I'm sure it even only hurts more to know that they're probably, who are they thinking about? Who are they calling for? They're probably calling for you. So it's terrible. It's terrible, and it really makes you think, especially when you have children. It really makes you think, anything could happen. So I will continue to pray. I hope that you do the same. And until we are back again and we return, hopefully everyone stays and remains safe. We'll try our best to do the same over here. Until then, this has been a new episode of the Journey Podcast, a presentation, production of CCU Media. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Christ Care Unit Missionary Baptist Church, CCU Media, or Bishop Robert F. Hargrove Sr. I am a member of Christ Care Unit Missionary Baptist Church in Sicklerville, New Jersey, where Bishop Robert F. Hargrove Sr. is pastor and founder. Until we meet again, stay safe. Go back and listen to our old episodes if this is your first one that you're listening in on. Sorry you had to listen to me ramble for 20 minutes or so. If you even are still listening. Sorry. Had to subject you to that. But I felt it was important to at least acknowledge it, because and then another 2 weeks when the new episode's on, what's the point of bringing it back up again? It has gone. I'm sure it will be off the news so regularly like it is, was when it first happened. Something else will be up there and be the new headline. And, at that point, it's done being like news. It's still the reality for so many. But at that point, it's like, the time has passed for you to say something and address it, especially if you have a podcast or a radio show or whatever. So it's like the time to get it in is now. This is pretty much the threshold of when it's like, all right, we need to move on. We need to collect ourselves and keep pushing on with life. So it's good to get it in. And I'm going to stop rambling now, and I'm going to let you guys go. And we'll see you in 2 weeks for another episode of the Journey Podcast.